Welcome back, artists. Hope you're doing good as always. I think it's time for a gym. They're getting a little too small. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, welcome back to my cave, to my man cave. Mm, tea. I just got new local honey. If I started speaking Spanish or Mexican, you know why? It's the honey. Anyway, I want to talk about something cool. So, I'm making these videos basically, you know, these are just my realizations and ideas that happen in the real time, basically, and it's like the same thing, new perspective, really, in the essence, it's just, at the core, it's the same thing. And I'm discovering that there are these different domains: mind, body, soul, and spirit. Spirit permeates everything. Soul is the feelings, emotions. Mind is images, thoughts. Body is sensations and motions. Okay. um I'm also discovering that, like I said in the previous video, that they run on the different sources of energy, and that um misappropriate use, when you try to compensate for one type of energy with the mind that's supposed to be with the body, that's where all the problems, or the energy that's supposed to be used in the body, you compensate the lack in the soul or in the mind. Does that make sense? Each domain supposed to be run by its own authority and its own energy, and you don't try to compensate it by the other. That's my overall conclusion that I'm seeing. And I'm noticing that there are people who belong to this, you know physical, mental, and soul, or spiritual. And but the problem with that is that they grab hold onto this as that's an answer to life, and that becomes toxic. you know um, People grab hold to that, like, oh, magic is everything. That becomes toxic. Then people go to spirit is everything. That becomes toxic, right? It has to be used throughout, and this is why, um, when I'm doing one-on-one sessions, is usually, uh, everything needs to be addressed. Sure, the first thing has to be addressed is that incoherent feelings, which is can be calibrated through the alchemy, right? But that's just the beginning, because then you have all sorts of desires that are in your soul, all sorts of desires that are in your mind and in the body, right? They don't go away. You can be the best alchemist in the world, but if your soul desires a certain type of feeling and emotion, like, for example, feeling loved, no matter how gangster you are in the spirit, that's not going to compensate for that need in your soul, in your heart. Okay? I've noticed that because I'm watching myself, right? Like, I could be calibrated in that peaceful bliss, and a lot of people say, well, that's just enough. Like, that's not true. It is absolutely not true. Um, there's still a desire in the soul to be loved, and it is a complete toxic lie that when somebody says, like, well, you don't have to feel loved, you know, it can be compensated by this peaceful bliss. No, it cannot be. It does not work like that. When there's a peaceful bliss, there is a capacity for you to access that feeling of, being loved or loving. It's available there. It's kind of not, especially now. It may not be available from the outside. Okay, you'll notice that that's pretty much like this ego war that's going on, and it's about like withdrawing love and truth from each other. And so that's this the whole Babylonian way. That is gonna talk. It's kind of toxic and is gonna blow over. But that's why you have to go through the spirit, and then you can, when you have that base, only then the soul could access those feelings and emotions that it's looking for. Does that make sense? And it is a relationship. When you connect to that feeling of being loved, or having a specific type of feeling of being loved, that is you being loved by different type of souls. And so requires, your heart requires connections with other beings. It that's its need, to be co-creative and playful with other beings. Mind also, just because you have that, mind is not, you know, at peace, because mind needs a different type of accomplishment, or the challenge. It has its own desires. It wants, you know um, whatever it wants. It wants to live in a specific place in the world. It wants to um, do a specific activity, whatever that form of life is, you see. And then the body has needs. Wants to move, wants sensations, wants touch, wants closeness, wants good food, good drugs. you know no, like I'm out of this thing. Like, I'm not, like I said in previous videos, I'm not against any of these things, but right now I'm cleaning that out of my life. I've had my phase, I've experimented, I've figured out the use of it. Like, there's a red pill drug like psychedelics, and there's a blue pill drugs like, these stimulants and whatnot, and they have its uses. Of course, everything has its place, right? Like, even heroin, it has its use. If you are really hurting in your body, that would definitely help you to stop the pain, or like other types of painkillers, right? It has its use, but it cannot compensate for, these other things. Same thing with psychedelics. I really think that psychedelics is a great thing to just snap people out of this trance that they're in, right? But to rely on them and keep on using them, and live in this world of imagination, because that's what usually takes you to the world of astral, and try to compensate with that world, the physical or the spiritual, and it cannot compensate. It gets toxic, and then you try to get, love with magic, and your accomplishments, physical accomplishments with magic, and it just becomes toxic. And you see what I'm trying to say. So now, what does all mean? Looking at all of that, I started seeing that, what's the fucking problem? It's like, why the energy isn't flowing correctly in all of those three domains already? Why there is this leakage, or the possibility of that energy to stray away from the coherent way? And I realize that is what the free will is. Free will is not a blessing, free will is a curse. I think a lot of people, now that I'm discovering this, clearly misinterpret what is the free will is. Because the free will allows you, within this game, within this simulation, on this planet, and this space-time, which, by the way, on this planet we live right now in a Dvapara Yuga on the smallest 24,000 year scale, and Kali Yuga on these million year scale, right? Different scales, different yugas. That's just the way it is, and it goes through 4 yugas. And if you want to be a little bit more specific, then you can divide them into 12. And, the zodiac signs and the yugas. It's all those cycles, okay? And what does that mean? That means the setting of the game, the setting, the difficulty, and what is required of you. Oh, what's going on with my watch? Holy shit. What is it doing? Spinning around like lost compass. It might be just automatically adjusting time. The time changed? Do we have to move time? Interesting. Anyway, what was I was saying? Talking about time, right? Free will. And so the free will is that openness, that free will, which is the setting of this game, the Kali Yuga, Dvapara Yuga. What does that mean? It means the level of allowance to steer off and deviate from the order and coherence in all the domains, the physical, mental, and soul, spiritual. That is the allowance. So if it's the Kali Yuga, then the allowance is very high, meaning that in order for you to calibrate yourself and live and exist in that type of environment, that type of game, it requires very deep and strong calibration and building of your own structure to compensate for the lack of that structure in the game, because it permits for that energy to bleed and leak and backflow, which is, by the way, exactly what we do when we calibrate consciousness. When you do one sessions, the energy is flowing backwards, and we basically putting the attention where it belongs. So through our attention, the energy stops flowing backwards and starts flowing coherently. That's why it's work is necessary. It is a type of work, the great work. By the way, the great work is not just the soul, mind, and body. All of the three is actually the great work. The great work is the game that we play here. Okay? So because that free will is allowed, which obviously every motion in that freedom just creates the ego and creates the deviance and creates a dysfunction and disorder. Okay? So the purpose of that is to calibrate it back into the coherence, the right organization, and the right order on all of those levels, soul, mind, and body. Just, taking care of the finances, that would be finding order within this, but not just any finances, because you can deviate and you can go on to this pain pacification industry, right, and be a drug dealer or whatever, right, make the money that way. Then that's the deviation. You've made the money, but it's not, you have not made the quality money. You're part of this game, right? So that's the deviation. You have to start making money without that type of deviance, but you got to figure out how to make money that is equal exchange of value, and that helps people to get off the drugs, perhaps, and not facilitate that. Okay, so that's what free will actually is. It is a curse, it's not a blessing, and it is a challenge. Because whenever you go back into the coherence, the sacred will is already there, that sets you free. It feels free. It feels like you clicking it and popping it and locking it, and everything just working out perfectly. It's almost like you figure out how to play the instrument, and then there's this harmony flowing, and it's like, oh, this is the gist of life, this is the meaning of life. That's beauty. It's not about deviating from that and having that free will, right? And that's why sometimes people don't understand. It's like, well, I do whatever I want. Okay, yes, reality permits to do whatever you want, right? um but what part of you wants that, right? Because normally realities or base reality does not permit that type of deviation. It's already harmonious. Okay, and there's a lot of realities out there that are already harmonious. You don't have to go into like another dimension, just go to another, you know space in the same time. For example, if you go take any other planet on another star system, depending on the distance from the center of the galaxy and all these other factors, you'll find that they have all these other yugas, and they may be at this particular time, maybe in the Sat Yuga in a large scale and a South Sat Yuga on a small scale, which then everybody is protected. Nobody, everybody is harmonious. Everything's perfect there. There's no challenge of the game. Okay, but Earth isn't like that. Okay, Earth is a challenge, and clearly, mm-mm. Sorry, I just got distracted. Jesus Christ. Sorry. Let's go back. Right? That's what determines the distance from the center of the galaxy, the distance from the planet. That determines the setting of this game, right? And so, okay, hopefully I'm making sense now. So that's like basically an acceptance of where are we and what kind of game we're playing, and what's really going on. And so kind of ends this bullshit of trying to make this reality to be um you know um harmonious by default. This reality is not going to be harmonious by default. It can only become harmonious if the players playing the game well. Then this reality can become harmonious. It's due to the work, the proper work, not deviated type of work, not fixating on one thing and saying that this is the answer to everything and then becoming toxic. It is this work that permeates all of these facets and domains of life, and understands that it's the same principles at work in each one, and it's the game is always going back into the coherence. And how do you know what is that guidance of that coherence? Well, it is the most amazing feeling ever. It is way better than what the ego can deliver to you, right? Ego can only deliver a type of pleasure and pacification, but soul can create joy. So there's that, I call it light passion or dark passion. Okay, that is the coherence, like, and I'm just saying that if you deviate, it will give you temporary pleasure and then crash, and you're going to be in a cycle of dysfunction. But if you deviate and then there's observation of what's going on, that you are entering the loop and you're correcting for that um, uh, leakage that is allowed through your own consciousness, through your own calibration, that reality still permits for that deviation to happen. But because you have corrected for it, now the energy is here with you, it's not leaking, and it's producing the coherence feeling within you. And so there's this blissful feeling, that peaceful blissful feeling that you already have, because you're not leaking that energy. And I'm talking about this specifically about the world of spirit and calibrating consciousness, the alchemy I'm talking about. And the alchemy must be done first for theurgy to even begin. because alchemy is correcting all sorts of um, like disorders that is happening within your consciousness. That incoherent feeling that we're talking about, and I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to make another video about this because I've discovered something fascinating about that too. How to calibrate much better and much more efficiently, because sometimes the challenges like last week was so intense, it just felt like black burning tar in my chest, and I've been trying to alchemize this, and it's been taking a long time, so I had to like figure out like how to do it. Like I had to watch what's really going on and like really listen to my consciousness to see how to alchemize these really deep rooted dark incoherence, um, the real toxic shit, at the deepest level. And it can be alchemized, but it anyway, I'll talk about this in another video. Okay, right? The same thing in the mind. In the mind also, there's a permission for that energy to leak and to deviate, and it requires correction. This is why you still have to do magic. The same thing in the soul, which is, by the way, what I describe as theurgy. Now that you have that coherence, that peaceful bliss after alchemy, through theurgy, you can then create all sorts of melodic harmonic states, like cymatics. You watch cymatics, you'll see that these are harmonic states that you can enter. And which one to enter, it depends on what your soul desires. Okay, but that is already where you have the coherence, and now you're playing the coherence and looking for the different forms of coherence. Does that make sense? That's why the difference between the alchemy and theurgy. The same thing is in your mind, and because first you have to calibrate it, all the incoherences, and only then you can create something that you want, which the image in your mind, right? Like even if you try, for example, to imagine something, there might be all sorts of incoherences, all sorts of feelings that coming up that kind of not allowing to see the thing that you want to see, or to experience the thing that you want to experience. So that is going to be a calibration within your mind. When it's calibrated, then upon request, there's this image, there's this picture, there's this event, you see what I'm trying to say. Okay, so there's work there too. And the same thing in the body. In the body also, you have to say, oh, say no to some habits, right? The discipline. This is the world of craft, basically. You have to say, okay, no, but dude, this is super important. Okay, super important. They all work together. If you don't get your habits right, none of this other is gonna matter, right? Like if you let your body just do whatever it wants to do, it's just gonna. There's not gonna be any kind of structure, and it's gonna jeopardize. It's gonna jeopardize all the other work that you're trying to do. This is why the habits are so important. It's this machine part of you that needs to operate well, and it is a type of language, by the way. The body language, the verbal language, everything is the capacity. I call it physiurgy. Is to be able to manipulate the physical world, whatever it takes. Right? Money is one of those sources of energy that can move things and build things. You see what I'm trying to say? That's you have to figure out how the physiurgy works, and it is magic in itself, by the way. The way I look at this is like it's a form of magic. If you look at this as a form of magic, then it is a fun it is a lot of fun. Okay, so what am I saying here? Something cool. Okay, habits. Now, another thing I have to say, people sometimes use affirmations. People may be using affirmations for the emotional, states. There's a bit of it's a big problem with that. Affirmations are great for habits. Affirmations is basically, what is an affirmation? It is a line of code. It's language. So through repetition of the affirmations, you can program your body to have good habits. I completely, obviously, condone for the habits, repetition, affirmations. Right? If you want to learn a kind of skill, repetition is the way. You do it, you calibrate it, you do it better, you do it better, you do it better, repetition, repetition, repetition. It's a type of affirmation, right? So use affirmations to develop right habits, but please don't use affirmations, because it's very backwards, to try to compensate for the lack of the feeling in your heart, right? Like, for example, there might be like a negative feeling in your heart, and with your mind you're trying to compensate, and it's like, no, I feel good, I feel good, I really feel good. Not as, but in the heart you definitely feel bad. But with the mind, it's like, no, I feel good, no, I feel good, it's positive, 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 and it talks of positivity, right? And even if you succeed to create that mind produced pleasure through the affirmations, you know, and that is like, whatever that may be, I am one, whatever that bullshit is, right? The words, through the words, if it's generated through the words in the mind, it's going to be a pacification of it. And if you escape that, it's still going to come back. And this is why people are in the loops, and they use that to compensate it, and they think, well, that's spirituality. And the whole spirituality is usually, you know, they are in the world of mind. They've never left the world of mind. They never entered the world of the heart, and they think that's spiritual just because it's non-physical. This is why, like, I separate, and I don't call that spiritual. I call this astral. The energy that is functioning there, it is capable to compensate. If you ask of it, magic will compensate for um, for love, but it's gonna create this abominable type of pacification of it. It's not gonna be real love, right? It's gonna be just like a lust type of thing. So anyway, makes sense, right? So that is the correction for this freedom. Okay, and that's why discipline can set you free. It is not the type of discipline that you have to do something that you see, that's the difference between somebody, for example, just letting it go and say, well, I just do whatever we want. Okay, well, where are you going to end up if you just do that, right? You probably is going to end up like the lowest branch, hanging fruit, and keep on hitting on that button, right? Is that life? Does that look to you like life? No, it's not life. It's some sort of an addiction and dysfunction and degeneration. But reality allows you to do this. So what is that? That's the free will. Okay? So what I'm saying here, free will is a curse. There's another type of the way of things, Tao or whatever, that sets you free. And the magic of that, it is always spontaneous, it's always new, it's always renewing, never, there's no end of novelty. That's the fucking magic, because you can get bored of one particular pleasure, right? But you can never get bored of bliss, because it's never the same. It's always answering the right type of question in your heart. Does that make sense? It's alive. And this is why I know. I've seen people going that way and saying, "Look, well, that's the way. That's just the program. If I complete this program, I will get this satisfaction." And I could see this, like, okay, go ahead, do it. But I already know that is the free will, right? But that is not the 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 way, the will of your soul. And I just like to make things, simple, not to complicate things. And there's a will that is a we call free will, which is just a deviation. And then there's a will that answers all the questions perfectly in all the levels, in the soul, mind, and body. Intelligence. And that's what sets you free, right? Because you are responding to reality in very appropriate ways. And by the way, this is what brings me to the word truth, which is, because we have the domain of soul, domain of mind, and domain of body, and then we have, the kingdom of spirit. All of those three domains in one kingdom, or those four faculties, answer to truth. That's why there is the truth of spirit, there's the truth of the soul, the truth of the mind, and the truth of the body. Because what is truth? The truth is the perfect answer to the riddle, to the challenge, to the question. That is what truth is. So if something is true in the physical reality and it answered and got you success, that's true. It worked. Same thing in the mind. Like if there's something that answered that desire in your mind, that vision that you wanted to create, that's the truth. Okay, and the reality is a feedback, right? And the problem may be that you're trying, for example, there's something that you have to do in the physical, but you're trying to do it, compensate with the spiritual. It's just not going to work because you're using a different truth. And in the physical reality, the truth is simple. You may just need to go and physically do this, rather than try to manifest this, in your imagination. Maybe you just have to go there and physically fucking do it. Because that's the truth, that's the answer to the challenge that in the physical. Does that make sense? And to me, this model is quite elegant. And because the truth, when it answers the question, the riddle, the challenge, it creates the coherence, it creates joy, it creates this beautiful feeling. It it tells you this is it, this is the right way, because of how it feels, how good it feels, but not as pleasure. Because right, this false will fakes try to fix it through the pleasure, but this is real. Okay, um, false coherence and the real coherence. Okay, that exists, but I like to use different words, and I'm trying to see what words are really um, fit well. The joy in the spirit, enjoyment in the soul, um, perhaps pleasure in the mind, and the satisfaction in the body. I'm still looking for better words to describe these things, but I know that these different types of coherences, and I know that if one's trying to compensate for the other, it creates this toxicity. But to try to eliminate all that, this is why, for example, if when Krishnamurti is talking about, and he's like, sounds like he's kind of completely counter pleasure, right? Only in one video I saw that it was like pleasure has its own place, but he didn't say it directly. He said that the thought has its own place, and it's obviously satisfaction of the thought is pleasure. I just deduced it like that. But there is this misappropriated pleasure that is bad, right? taking heroin all the time, you say like, well, I'm getting the feedback that feels good, so I'm just gonna keep on doing it, right? I have free will to do this. I can just press the button and it can just feel amazing. I keep on pressing that button, right? There's free will for me to do this. The feedback is that feels good. That's supposed to be the answer to life, but clearly it is not. Clearly, it's trying to falsify something and compensate for something that is supposed to come from other things. I hope I'm communicating this clear. So it matters what kind of satisfaction, what kind of pleasure, what kind of bliss. Okay? And I like to call ecstasy in the body, bliss in the heart, and what you call it? Clarity or awe in the mind. Because if you sometimes, for example, take psychedelic and start see these kaleidoscopes, and you get a certain type of feeling of awe, and like, well, that is it. But then sometimes, for example, you feel this ecstasy in the body, this kind of primal energy, okay, and then you feel this bliss in the soul, which is just sparkle and whoosh, and this beautiful rainbow fragrance feeling. That's bliss emanating. Okay. So there you go. So that's basically consciousness calibration and navigation, um, and that's where all we're supposed to start. If we know how to play the game, if we know what's the score, then we're not lost. Understand? So now that brings me to this dysfunctional satisfaction, right? And that usually um, creates this relationships between a person and a thing, which is the person and the drug, or the person and a activity, or a person and another person, but in a toxic type of uh, pacification. So there you go. Now, I see a lot of these videos right now where people talk about in trashing narcissist, right? In they're talking now as these abusers. Okay, now, of course, they need to be pointed out and exposed. When abuser is abusing somebody innocent, right? Somebody who's definitely helpless and don't even have a capacity for think for themselves. Okay, that is pretty freaking evil. And because you can't say that like, well, a child kind of asked for it, right? Because the child doesn't really have the sufficient developed intelligence to even know what the fuck is happening. However, adults who call themselves empaths, and it's like, oh, I'm so empathic, and of course they project this reality on this world, and not acknowledging of what kind of settings and what kind of game there is, and that there is this darkness and there is this deviation here, and just they say, well, no, if I just really believe it, that I can fix the people who are deviated from it. And they usually get very attracted to the people who pretend that they know what the fuck is going on, like narcissists. And they become all sorts of cult leaders and gurus and all sorts of people in these types of positions, government positions and stuff like that, right? And then these other people who are quite gullible, that is basically enabling them. Now these are grown-up people. I'm not saying this with the judgment, because I have also been on both sides. I've been on the side of being a narcissist, and I've been on the side of being an empath, because that's reality permits this. So by me just living this life and going on that stream, I get the feedback. But I got the feedback quite quickly, and I realized that what is this narcissism and how it arises, and what is this empathic and how it arises. And it's both are deviations from the coherence. And it is asking for the calibration for you to be able to be a right masculine and a right feminine. And then you can connect on another level, which is connects on based on love, and not this dysfunction and this dark passion. It connects on light passion, not the dark passion. Okay. So, and I closed the doors on that. As soon as it triggered me deeply, I looked there and I figured it out. I'm not saying it was easy. It was very hard. It might be one of the most difficult things that I did, but I did not continue in that loop. And because I did not continue in the loop, I'm not going out there and blaming narcissists or the empaths for creating this dark passion, reality. And there's something about empaths being obsessed with narcissists. They get off on it, right? And they even get off on these things. It's like, oh yeah, narcissists, they're really bad, aren't they? They even get that pleasure from that, right? It's like, well, I'm so much better than narcissists because, I'm not like that. Look how evil that person is. You fucking enabled that person, okay? Not only you enabled it, you knew exactly what you're getting into. You have all the signs, yet you kept on going. Because there's something, part of you, that you're not looking at, and it is getting off on this abuse from the narcissist. There's no narcissist without the empath. They both are toxic. They both are toxic as fuck. And if you see the person who is this type of, has this openness, like empath has the incorrect openness, it is a type of unselective openness, right? And all these, usually these empaths, a lot of them are messed up, like sexually. You know what I'm trying to say? The whole BDSM thing and stuff like that. This is the same dynamic, right? To go into this BDSM and all that stuff. Which, by the way, it's a very fucking dark shit. Very dark shit. There was a part of my life where I thought that, like, well, that's just the play. That's just a sex play. No, it is super dark shit. And this reality permits to go that way and get off on this dark passion. But through the discipline and habits, I cut this off. And all the pressure that is there, all the temptations and everything, I alchemize and I receive that light passion, which I value more than that dark passion, of course. And that's how you deal with this. Okay? So the enablers are as equally at fault for that hurt to be generated, because they received a certain type of pacification and pleasure from it. You understand? So then they don't feel this hurt. That's why they were so attracted to that, clearly narcissist, because of this. And that's why narcissist was attracted to this. It's just the way it works. And then they come out and they play all sorts of fucking games and victims, and it's like, yeah, he was fucked up and I'm so, I'm such a good, but obviously been sending out all sorts of fucked up signals. Otherwise, narcissists would not even be interested in you. Okay? So both sides are toxic. And I just want to say this because they are exposing, now they're going out and exposing narcissists, but they're also exposing themselves as enablers of the narcissist and the gullible idiots that makes the narcissist to even exist in the first place. Both of them, they generate pain in this reality. You understand how evil both sides are? the abuser and the abused, excluding the children and people who cannot talk for themselves. However, an adult who's a grown ass man or a grown ass woman following some fucking idiot, you know, rather than getting their life in their shit together, they're seeking for something in this, person, following that person, and they deserve what they get. And they should be in jail with those narcissists. Hopefully, they will end up in jail with those narcissists. If they went full on, I've never gone into these BDSM games. I never belonged to any kind of cult. I've never done any kind of dysfunctional sexual practices or shit like that. I've considered that in my mind. I saw where it leads to, and I stopped. And I did not want to go that way. But to say that I was not subjected to it, that would be a lie as well. I just needed to see once, of course, for myself to realize what it is. Because there's a part of me that is an adult that said like, hey, this isn't, I know that you know, attracted to this thing, but hey, what the fuck are you doing? Right? So there's a reasonable part of me, that adult part of me, that said like, no, don't do this. And it was difficult not to do this because it's like an addiction, and so I had to deal with this, and it was hard, but I dealt with it because I knew that way is definitely not the way in my life. But these people did not do that. These people just went all in that shit, and they committed a crime. Both sides. If they're adults, you see what I'm trying to say. As far as I'm concerned, all these people who just see this as some sort of like, all cults are sex cults. They revolve around that dark passion energy, all of them, and that generates evil in the world. This is why when I realized that, I became against this. I'm not gonna say like, oh, to each his own. Fuck that. No. Hey, if you're doing this kind of shit, I will tell you what you're doing. And I did say to some women that I met who were like engaged with that, I said, this is as ugly, girl. What you're doing is disgusting. I don't know if it worked or not, but that's their concern now. Of course they got upset, and they should get upset, because what the fuck are they doing? Not against sex, but there's plenty of satisfaction in a through the genuine connection with one person, but through the light passion and not this dark. Like I said, I almost got caught in this, and I understand the allure, but what I don't understand is then later, having the superiority of some sort. It's like, oh yeah, look at me. The narcissist is bad, but I'm the victim. No, you participated in this thing. You enabled it, and you're both at fault. It is a type of dysfunctional dynamic, or this dark passion, that is evil. And people, when they go into this, it ends up real bad. It is evil. You keep going there, and you need more and more and more. You start doing crazier and crazy shit. But because people like us have to deal with that crap that they create and alchemize. For example, last week, I could tell that something is disgusting has been happening in the world. I don't know what the fuck been happening, but it was like this black tar lava feeling that I'm still dealing with. It's almost over, and I'm almost completely done alchemizing it and putting it back into the coherence. But every time I do it, um, people stop fucking around because it stopped working. I talked about this in the previous video. So anyway, so that's just my little rant about this. Okay, and I have to say this, and I have to say that um, what it is, what is the deviation, what is the solution, and how to live life. You see, and it is not like being afraid of it completely and just it's like, well, sex is evil now, and be celibate. No, there's a type of sex that can be evil, and there's a type of sex that can be good. Everything has to be in the right places. And there's also a thing, if people just could understand just this dark type of passion, then when they experience light passion, that pales in comparison, and so they stop seeking this and trying to getting off or being obsessed with the narcissist and how they function and you know what kind of playbook they have and all that shit. These are dysfunctional, toxic people. Ah, you know. Yeah, this is why like, uh, who's gonna hang out with me? Who's gonna talk to me? Because neither narcissist, neither empath is going to talk to me if they're still functioning. But if they're recovering from that and say, yeah, it is a toxic shit what I did as an like as an empath. Is it toxic shit what I did as a narcissist? I want to get, out of it. I may, you may need to go through a lot of burning that crap inside of you. But alchemy is the way. Consciousness calibration is the way. So in fact, I'm somebody who could actually show them how to calibrate their consciences so they don't have to be addicted and dependent on that dysfunction and continue that toxicity. So yeah, that's just my take. I know that eventually all the people who are engaged in this dark way, even though it may seem like they're doing good, it's an energy kind of thing, right? Like you can feel people's energy. If somebody's beaming that type of incoherent or openness or incorrect openness, don't get surprised that corresponding energy is being attracted to it. Okay? So, anyway, that's my little rant for today. Free will is a curse, not a blessing. And we have to correct for that curse through work, through calibration for the blessings to come in. Okay? Anything else you want to know? Book a session. Okay? If you've been thinking about this, just book a freaking session. Let's just get this thing over with. And I need a lot more people for these one-on-one sessions. I got perfect time for this right now. And anyway, and some people say that they may need more than one session, and in reality, the way I see this is that you don't need more than 4. Why? It's because there's 4 domains of consciousness. There's a calibration of your spirit, calibration of your soul, calibration of your mind, calibration of your body. And if I can show you each one, after that, if you have recording of the video, you don't need anybody else, because you know the way of how to do it. If your mind kind of deviates and starts looking for the answers somewhere else, it's like, no, you already have the answer, you already have the key, just use it and it will unlock whatever it's necessary. Okay, so you don't depend on me, because by spending that time, I show you the key, I give you the key. Okay, and I'm being reimbursed for my time, and you have something that has an infinite return on investment. I'm using this in my life. I'm walking my talk. Okay? This is why it's still evolving. And this is why I'm discovering everything from scratch by myself. I'm not reading any books. Not that books are not okay when it comes to, learning some skills and stuff like that, but I'm just going directly through. I'm not creating any kind of beliefs. And if there is a belief, I say, well, how do I know if it's true? Well, somebody told me from outside. Well, maybe that's not true. So many things are not true, because somebody may say a quote that is true in this domain, and you listen to this and apply it to a different one, and then you have your ass handed to you, right? It's because you misappropriate and misapplied, because you created a belief out of that quote that you don't know where it fucking fits, because you haven't been directly experiencing and figuring out yourself. And what I'm teaching universal principles. Okay, it applies to everybody. It applies to a man, it applies to a woman. These are universal principles. And then what kind of activity you want to do for what, it's your concern. You're gonna use these principles, you're gonna excel at that chosen field, just like that. That's it. And that's what I want to focus on, because it's so amazing. All right, guys. Yeah, I got some more. Alchemy to do. But we're gonna get this handled. I'm sure. I feel like there's something else I want to say. But anyway, I'm gonna make another video, because that video, it will be about the alchemy and how to alchemize faster. And as I'm gonna be talking about it, I'm gonna be doing it. So anyway, peace, and I'll see you in the next one.